it would just disappear. There were transparent areas on the top of the chair, and I hate to even talk about what we had to do to them.
Oh man, I can't wait to talk about it. Do we want the perfect key that looks crappy, or do we want to deal with some things, try to achieve that perfect key, and make it look cinematic?
It's created a new set of problems, which can be very frustrating as a team, because we're like, well, we had this perfect. Now what has changed?
The main establishing wide shot now has a very different, it's like, well, I don't know. I don't think anyone in the world would think, oh, well, that was shot at this location that we actually shot it in. I don't know why it took us this long. It seems like we keep talking about doing more over the shoulder shots in our interviews, but for various reasons that ends up just not happening a lot. Finally, we did a beautiful over the shoulder 5-camera plate setup, 2 people on camera. I cannot wait to break this whole thing down. I actually didn't shoot the plate, but let me just talk a little bit about the strategy of the location scout. So I did get to participate in that, and that was awesome. We actually shot this plate at the Tennessee Aquarium located in our city. And here's just some iPhone video of us doing like a quick location shoot of this. And part of how this particular content, we're not really going to talk about the content or who the client was or anything, but it made sense to have the aquarium be in the background or be featured for this particular setup. So you can see what we're doing right now is just kind of moving my camera around to see like, well, what would an over the shoulder shot look like? And we tried some interiors, some really amazing aquarium fish were so awesome, but they kind of were stealing the show for me. And the natural light, we're always looking for light motivation. And you can see I just turned on cinematic mode on my iPhone just to get some idea of like, what would this look like? And, it was interesting. We went through a variety of locations, but this really stood out to me, and I think everyone else too. And it was kind of, it's kind of one of those things where when you're doing a location scout, you just kind of know, and it's like, oh, this is the spot. And I think everybody else, I think maybe Tyler, you were like, oh yeah, this is it. Like we all kind of felt like, oh, yep, this is the one. Which was awesome because I got to pick it and then not have to wake up really early to go film the plate. I had to go out of town or something. So let's talk about the plate process of how we recorded this plate. And then of course, we're going to show you the results of how we did that. There's a lot to unpack. Why don't you guys talk about what did it take to get shooting this plate? Because I wasn't there for that part.
So we packed up 5 cameras and then we hiked all those up to the very top. And
I'm going to interrupt you, Jay, because I realized before we did that, what did we do in the studio? I think you guys should talk about that first.
Oh, that's good. That's a really good point. Yeah, sure. Okay, so Tyler, you can chime in on this at any time. Tyler was really sort of the one who does sort of he handles measuring the dimensions and understanding sort of all the math behind it. I just kind of look at it and go, yep, looks good. But we set up an entire set that we basically figured we were going to take the exact dimensions of what we were able to put together in the studio on the cyc wall and then try and replicate that in the space at the aquarium so that, we wanted the dimensions to work out perfectly, basically.
Well, it was helpful to set it up in the studio because we knew, okay, this is where this kind of camera generally has to be. And we had measurements and everything. But then, as always happens, when you get on location, you have to move the camera this way and that way to get that right angle to see the things in the background. So once we had it all in place, then we just end up taking the real world measurements and bringing that back to the studio and repositioning the cameras that we had already kind of positioned to match the place that we're at where we actually shot everything.
And as people as we learn and grow, as we record more and more plates, we realize the shots that we can't sort of mess with and sort of actually fake by moving it a little bit. And we realize the shots that we can. So the side shot and the over the shoulder shots were the two where to get the set to look right, we had to sort of pivot our cameras in a way that made it look absolutely incredible on the wide shot. But then on the side shot or on the over the shoulder shot, our main subject would have had a pillar directly behind his head, and you would have seen a lot less of the river and the bridge and all the mountains with the clouds moving behind it. So we did have to pivot it. And the way we pivoted it that's hard to say. The way we did it would have put the camera almost outside of the wall of the cyc wall. It was so far away. So that was a challenge, and we did. Isaac was there. It was Isaac, Tyler, and I in the morning, and we did shoot like a reference shot. So basically, like we had somebody sit down, and we got our wide shot first. Then we moved to each side shot and the over the shoulder, and then we faked it from there. But we shot a reference shot so that we did know that it made sense in some type of way. And if you weren't there physically, if you didn't walk through the space, as a viewer of the video, you will never know that we altered those shots. And actually, a lot of the times, it can be advantageous because you can actually get a better looking shot than what you would actually shoot if you were there on shooting on location, because we have the capability to bring it back and fake it, which you can't do when you're on location actually shooting the thing.
So can I summarize how I process that, which is like, okay, we had to, in our studio, line up our cameras because we haven't done a lot of over the shoulder shots. We had to make sure the angles and everything would work. Once we had those rough dimensions in with some flexibility of how much we could, then you went on location. And then I think we have a shot here where we can show what this looks like, but you ended up kind of shooting in a way that may not be exactly the way you would line up the people if they were there. But that's okay because it's cheating it to create a better background.
Yep.
That's the main goal, is to get the right, nice looking background when you're there, shooting this plate.
Right. Yeah. Cause there's some dimensionality that we don't necessarily notice off to, like we won't really know exactly. Well, let's look at what this ended up looking like. Now, what we did here is we took our the plates that you see here. I'm going to show you some people in it, but you'll notice some things have changed. So our actual client, we're not showing them. And so instead we have some amazing friends of ours that we asked to come over, Olivia and Tiffany, to sit in for us. And just for fun, because I wanted to kind of do two things at once. You'll notice that's not the aquarium behind them. But I thought it'd be fun to see, like, well, how quick could I generate a new background? So we'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. So stay tuned. We'll kind of walk through that process here in a bit, but let's just kind of just cycle through the shots. Now, obviously they were not the actual talent that we shot this for. The lighting, and there's some things that I would have done a little differently for them, but just so you can kind of get a feel for each of these different shots and see what this looks like. Again, this is not the dialed in version like we did for our client, but
it's mainly just looking at the backgrounds and how amazing they look.
Yeah.
Well, it all feels like it makes a lot of sense in the end, even though, we didn't have them all, these angles didn't necessarily make sense. You don't have a lot of context to be able to tell that it can't, so when you're watching the video, it's just like, yeah, of course, this is that angle and this is that angle, and those fit in here with what I can see.
I think they only don't make sense if you don't know if you know how it was actually shot. But to somebody watching it, unless they have a really, really perceptive physics mind, they're going to be like, they don't even think about it.
Well, I think for me, I was there, but now seeing this, I didn't shoot the plate, but it all makes complete sense to me. It all just seems completely.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't even think a person with that really understands space would be able to tell that we faked it, which was exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
And I think that is advantageous to us when we shoot tons of plates, because a lot of the times it's like, oh yeah, that looks good, but if I just tweak it about 4 inches to the right, man, look how buttery smooth those lights in the back are, and it works out most of the time.
So when we were watching this as we were recording it, as we're sitting there doing, I'm like, why are we not doing more over the shoulder shots? And I think a lot of that has come down to most of the content we make tends to not be very interview like, and instead it tends to be much more presentation like, where it's like me and the other person here, and we're both talking to you, the viewer, and it's not as much talking to each other. But man, we've got to do more of this. The over the shoulder stuff looks so good.
Yeah. I think one thing we did on this one was we took a 60 minutes approach, right? Like in the past, we have shot like interview setups, but like you said, it was more directed towards like teaching an audience member, somebody who was there with intent to learn about what they were talking about. And this is more of like an actual direct interview style, A to B, person speaking to person, and it is very conversational. So what we did was in the past we have shot where the chairs were sort of looking towards each other, sort of, but still sort of at the camera. You notice in this shot they are
Right.
basically looking directly at each other. That is going to help us achieve that over the shoulder shot. And that helps also give it that interview feel. So this is a much more opinionated angle than we've ever taken before when shooting two people on set. And I think a couple of things allow us to get, or this allows us to get a couple of things. The over the shoulder shot is one thing that we're gaining for both sides, but then also we're gaining something that we've always wanted to do. And Andre, I'll let you take over on this, but even the wide shot this time was from the shadow side.
Shadow side.
Right.
So, we're learning as we go. And the goal of this is just, we're trying to tell everyone else everything that we're learning. Some things will be advanced in and some things will be behind in. I don't know. It's like, just like here's where we are and here's what we're learning now. It's so funny. I don't remember what day it was or whatever, but I remember the moment Tyler, Jay, and I are in the studio years ago and we're setting up the side shot. And I think we had set up a side shot on either side. And for context, most of our productions earlier on were very flat lit,
Clamshell.
Clamshell glamour lighting, kind of lighting style. It's very pretty, but not a lot of. We were not embracing shadow. It was kind of like, how do we make all shadows disappear? As we moved towards a directional lighting setup, we were like, okay, where should we place the side angle? And I remember the moment when we had two cameras on either side of the subject, and we were like, which side should we shoot from? And it was so funny because it was like the side the key light was on was like, oh, that is terrible, and the nice shadow side was like, that's gorgeous. And it was almost like we had to learn in that moment, like, oh, always shoot from the shadow side. So in case you're wondering and don't know that, don't feel bad. We just learned that a few years ago in our process of like, oh, that's always the answer. And so if we look at the wide, what we were able to do there is give them some shadow. And so that light now seems to be obviously motivated from the outdoors and coming in. Now, there's still some lighting. The people that we were shooting, it made sense to have a little more fill on the camera side, but still a nice shadow on the face going on there. So it's funny because when you look at it in our hilarious contraption here, what we're doing to light this is we have these three IntelliTechs. We have these are the Mega 8s, I think is what they are. And so we have diffusion on both of them. One on the right side, that's lighting the person on the left and vice versa. And then we have one in the middle that's just kind of creating some general ambience. But it still wasn't soft enough for me. We started out with grids on these. We took the grids off. It was still just not quite soft enough. So then you guys built this little contraption out of taking a scrim gem, Westcott scrim gem that's like a 6x4 or something like that. But then there was still, so we kind of hung that and that was good, but there was still some harder light coming through. So then you just took some other, I guess that's like 1.5 stop. Yeah. I'm not sure which.
One of them, it was two different. We had to actually end up having to double one on the
okay. Nice.
But it all worked out.
It's fine. So, but there's the diffusion there that you can kind of see how that ended up. Just creating a big soft, it kind of looks like it's like a belly light like we've done before, but in reality, there's still some directional light hitting that creates, there's still a key light that there you go, that you can kind of see hitting both of them. So
right.
yeah,
where a belly would sort of like dip down and then sort of fill from the middle out. We
Right.
didn't want that exact feel. We
Right.
wanted it to still be a little directional, like you said. Now, when you're shooting from the shadow side, typically we haven't done that on a wide shot. So this is the first time we've been able to do that. When we're doing it, it's typically on a close up on a side shot, which you can get away with a lot more because you're revealing a lot less in that shadow area. But can we briefly talk about the challenges that shooting a wide from the shadow side might bring? Like, for instance, if you go back to the wide shot, you can see that we have two lights shining in on the chairs, which
Yeah.
isn't totally what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
But there are complications that arose with shooting from a darker side.
Well, maybe one kind of meta concept to just briefly discuss, and then I'd love to hear the more specific challenges Tyler, you and Jay specifically had. But the meta concept is what's a keyer doing? Well, it's taking a color and it's removing it, right? So it's selecting the color green, it's removing the color green. The problem is green is happening in a lot of ways. It's, of course, happening on the wall that's painted green, but we're lighting up the wall with lights, which make the green surface now become a green light. And so that green light is now spilling, right? Green is spilling across the room. So why does our green screen look different than many other traditional green screen setups that you've seen before? Well, because more traditional green screen approach is evenly light everything. Just light up the room, make it as bright and light as you can. And by doing that, the reason why that's so important to do historically has been because, okay, now there's no shadow, because anywhere there's a shadow, an absence of light, like if we have the shadow side and there's not as much light here as there is here. On this side, if there's green right here, it's spilling onto the face. And so when there's a shadow, that means there's still a light. And unfortunately, the light that's making it to the subject, whatever it is green. And now it's getting keyed out, or it's hard to fill it in well. So we've embraced shadow side, the ability to have a shadow, but in doing that, we have green spill. So that's awesome. The end result looks superior. However, it's this like balance of dancing back and forth. And shockingly enough, if you haven't done a lot of green screen work, black or variations of black seem like it would reject the most amount of color, but in reality, it seems to be like, come on over, green, you can hang out on me. And so, yeah, so that's a long way of saying, I guess here we can see kind of a little bit of spill on the back of Olivia's arm, where there's not really a light. He's showing that we stacked the
this is for something else, but
it's for something else. But you can see a little spill
and on the
green
chair
on that
too.
shadow.
Just how much green is reflected in.
Right.
Yeah, that meta concept was actually really important, Andre. I didn't even think to go that deep because now we can talk about it a little bit more. You said that black not only invites green, black reflective leather is all about inviting green. It loves green. It's like, oh man, it caused a lot of problems. But you know, it's all about the balance, like you talked about. It's like, do we want the perfect key that looks crappy, or do we want to deal with some things, try to achieve that perfect key, and make it look cinematic? Because we don't want to be the hokey green screen, perfectly lit stuff that you can find anywhere. That's what we want. That's how we want to separate ourselves. There's one very specific thing that we had to do to the chairs. On the arms of the chairs on each side. Can you go to a side shot? Or over the shoulder, I guess, would be one of them. Yeah.
The leather of the chairs was not super shiny, but it had enough of gloss on it where the green would bounce off the top of the arms of the chair, and so it would just disappear. There were transparent areas on the top of the chair, and I hate to even talk about what we had to do to them.
Oh man, I can't wait to talk about it. That's why I brought it up. Yeah, we're literally seeing the reflection. So like if you look at those, if you go back to the composited shot, those arms were see-through, like so difficult to deal with. No amount of light could make that stop reflecting. And then also the amount of light spilled onto the person or just kind of made everything feel a little different. So Tyler being the master genius that he is, figured out a way to dumb down some of the reflections. So can you talk
Well,
about that, Tyler?
we were thinking about, well, what can we do to make these less reflective? I'm like, well, I know one thing that we could do. We could sand the finish on the leather, rough it up. And Andre was like, of course. Well, go, yeah, try it on the back of that cushion, and it worked. So I had this really fine wet dry sandpaper. I think it was maybe 800 or 1,000 grit, and I just went along and just kind of gently.
Here you are practicing on the back of the chair, kind
testing
of
it
trying
out.
to see.
Look at that.
You're like,
And
look
it's
what
like,
it's going to do, man.
Dude, it worked so good
did.
on camera. It worked, and it you can tell a little bit, especially for you now that you're watching this, you can tell.
Right.
But man, in person, it really ruined the chair.
It makes them seem all worn, but
Enhanced.
It did kill the glare, and that was the key. So now I think I'm going to look into adding a matte finish to leather. So what can we do to make it not, because you just cannot have even paints that people say, oh, well, this is matte, but it's actually sort of eggshellish. Man, when you get at that just the right angle, the light can just reflect right off of that, and anything that shines from the background, it just turns invisible.
Yeah, it seems to be like everything that we want to do, if it's a surface. And some of you have commented, and some of you have talked to us at NAB about different ways to do this, and we want to explore some of those. But it seems you can put a table out there, and if it's like looking at it like this, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. But the moment you move that camera down to get the right angle, and you see it sort of more at level with that surface, it doesn't matter what kind of finish it is. So it's all about figuring out the ways to alter that. It's not about the overall finish that you see obviously from your eyeballs, because to the naked eye you can't see it, but it's all about looking at it on camera and then lowering it to that right to the right viewpoint that makes it look awesome. Then you got to work on it from there, and it may lead you to sandpapering leather.
This does remind me something else that I feel like we've never really thought as much about is the angle of reflection for the light on whatever. So when we were shooting kind of the B-roll right at the end of this, I was looking at this chair and I started to notice as I moved the camera, the light just disappeared.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't know if we've ever thought about how reflection happens in these chairs and where obviously we got to get the lights wherever we can get them, but it's like,
about it.
well, yeah.
Angle of incidence equals angle of reflection.
Right. In my mind, I was sitting there going like, oh, whoa, I haven't ever like seen this visceral of an example of it, I guess.
That is a cool example, though. As you move to a different angle, the light doesn't bounce into the camera the way it does on the shot.
Yeah. And my question that made me wonder is like, is there some way to hit light onto the object that gets rid of the green spill, but doesn't make it look like there's a giant light on the object somehow? I don't think that's how that works at all, because like you said, angle of incidence and whatever. But I was like, I wonder if somehow there's
it could work.
But
my favorite thing about what we do is it's like, hey, A plus B equals C, right? And it's like, well, no, there's an F and a G and an H and an I all thrown in there. And I don't know what it equals out to be, because who knows if the light's going to spill on the other person or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great question that will just take basically all of us sitting in the room and just trying it out and doing different things to figure out. But I do think we have thought about that before, but I've never looked at an example quite like that, what you just showed. That was pretty cool.
One time when we were using those chairs, the light was reflecting off the side, and I had this black kind of self-adhesive kind of felt material that I'd gotten for something, and I just kind of stuck it all on the side of the chair, and it worked.
It worked great.
It made a shadow where there was no light reflecting, and it made it kind of a velvety look. And you didn't even notice it on camera.
Yeah, sometimes you can get away with things like that because we typically will crush the black levels a little bit. And sometimes depending on how dark that area is, you can get away with things. But who knew? All we needed to do was just sandpaper the side of the
chairs.
I think we made it suede. I think that's
it. Yeah,
I think that's what's a new suede chair. That's what that is. Yeah. So if you're thinking, what kind of furniture should I buy? Don't buy a shiny black chair. But a cloth or apparently a suede black chair would be really good. Something that'll have the light come in and then trap it where it's going to bounce out in a different way. An alt scatter will be what you want to have.
Yeah. And lighting is sort of everything that we do, right? And we've been learning about trying to get the correct false color at the right IRE. So we in the past we've used Black Magic in camera false color, and then we've talked about Nobe Omniscope and it's different use cases. Like it's got a variety of use cases. And I had sort of an aha moment, and then Isaac and I collaborated after I asked him to do something on the next debrief that we'll talk to you about. But on this one, we did a bunch of false color with Black Magic. Came in here with Andre, and it was like, well, none of that worked. So it's like in the way you think it's just going to work when you do false color, you get the right setup, and then you come back here to the ultimate and you click on your combined matte and it's sparkly and dancing, and you're like, what the heck? The false color doesn't necessarily correlate from Black Magic to that, but if you go look at the Nobe Omniscope false color of the wall, it does correlate. And I think we've had this discussion before, but my aha moment on this was I can't only look at false color. So now when I'm doing false color, is what we call it as like a general term for what we're doing. Now I also want to look at the combined matte. I don't know why I haven't thought about this in the past, but it's like the combined matte is the evidence of how the sparkle and how the image is going to look once you key it out. So now when I'm out there figuring out how to light the wall to get that perfect look, to be able to achieve that perfect key, I'm looking at combined matte and false color and seeing how they correlate. It's a whole song and dance. It's not just like, hey, if you get the false color right, then the combined matte looks great. It's like, nope, actually, sometimes in the dark gray, the combined matte looks awesome. In the bright, amazingly perfect false color green, it's sparkling. And I don't fully understand why yet. It's going to be a life goal of mine to figure that out. But now now I fully understand that it is, like I said, it's a song and dance. It's all three pieces. It's lighting it, looking at the false color, and looking at the combined matte to then see how the composited image looks. And man, it's not going to be foolproof every single time, but I feel like I'm going to be able to achieve a better key. And on the next debrief, we'll tell you about how that actually did happen.
Well, I just want to jump in on that. Isaac and I spent a week doing a lot of testing between the studio cams, the Ursa Cine, the Pixis, and all those different cameras with their false color and with Nobe Omniscope. And one of the things is, and Isaac and I discussed this, is how the cameras have, with their false color, they have a connection to the ISO value of the camera, where Omniscope does not understand any of that concept. So what we were noticing was there was like a offset between the two of Omniscope versus the Blackmagic false color that's built into the camera. Early on, when we made the switch to green screen, we were using micro four thirds size sensors. And if you watch the Ultimate video on our YouTube channel, you'll see we had a really nice false color and the key looked really good. And so as we've advanced our cameras, moved to more dynamic range and things like that, it's created a new set of problems, which can be very frustrating as a team, because we're like, well, we had this perfect. Now what has changed?
Right.
What do you mean? We never felt any of those frustrations, Morgan.
So I find that can be challenging because like, Andre, you're very pro Omniscope, which Omniscope does have its use case. Same with combined matte. It's figuring out how do we mesh all these tools together. Even as we go through our testing, methodology, which we'll share in more depth in future videos here.
Yeah, I think what we'll end up doing soon is releasing kind of like, here's our new refined workflow. The people have asked for like a updated Ultimate video. We're almost there. There's a few more things that we're really doing some strong testing on, like you guys. I mean, a week of laborious going through very precise, detailed testing. You and Isaac did incredible, and so we're putting together the true answer, and it's, what's annoying is we'll get really far down that path and then we'll be like, actually it's this instead. And so that's where we are right now on that. I mean, we're getting some great keys in spite of, but we're starting to build a theory. And so to give you the sneak peek of the theory, the more dynamic range, possibly the harder it is to key, is one part of the theory. Another part of the theory could be the bigger the sensor size, the harder it is to key. We're not sure exactly. We're going to do some additional tests and work.
Yeah,
through
don't
that
worry.
and
In a month, that'll all be different.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah,
It's actually the opposite of what we thought
Right,
was true.
right.
Well, and the other thing is too, it's like, is it the sensor size, is it dynamic range? A lot of times the cameras we have with larger sensor sizes have more dynamic range than the cameras with smaller sensor
Right.
sizes. So which of those two things is the actual factor? It's a lot harder to tell. One thing also that's interesting with Omniscope, it doesn't have a tie to the camera ISO, but it is directly looking at the exact same SDI video feed that the Ultimat sees.
Right.
So it is looking at the exact signal, not what the camera interprets it as, but it isn't the IRE means is not actually, it's a guess.
Sure.
That's kind of what I've talked to their team about. It's like, this is kind of a generally accurate, within this color space, within this whatever. So it's hard to kind of know, like, okay, well, is that, what number do we need to be hitting on there, whatever. We still haven't nailed that stuff 100% down yet, but we're getting a lot closer. And we're also finding that like Omniscope is more sensitive than camera's false color.
Yes.
Which can potentially be both good and bad, because it can make it harder to make it even, but also maybe, and Jay, I don't know if you'd agree with this, it feels like we're learning maybe it doesn't have to be as even in Omniscope land to still get a good key out of, but we're still learning what all of that is.
Yeah, there's different settings. Oh,
The
are you
phone is
the
ringing. Hold on.
business owner?
Let me answer this.
We're taking donations. It's like a telephone.
Yeah.
So call in now.
Operators
Pledge
are
your
standing
support.
by.
We'll talk more. Like I keep saying this, we'll talk more on the next debrief. But there are things that we are figuring out. But at the end of the day, there are settings that you can adjust within Nobe Omniscope that we're starting to figure out that helps a lot. And there's two different ways I'm wanting to use it now. But the number one way it is the best to use case would be Andre. I guess maybe it was a couple of shoots ago, I sat back in your position and I realized how important it is to. I didn't match the black and white levels from the foreground to the background, and so that's where a Nobe Omniscope 100% reigns king, is being able to help us blend the foreground and background by making sure those black and white levels.
And just to introduce some fun tension in all of this, I actually think maybe Nobe Omniscope is the correct answer. So stay tuned for us to kind of work through that. I actually find that Nobe's false color is almost perfectly representing where my problem areas are going to be.
Yeah, it represents the problem areas, and it is not representative at all of what the camera sees. So that's what I'm talking about with the Ultimat thing, is it sees what the Ultimat sees, so it can see the problem areas, but it doesn't help you initially light the wall potentially.
And
but which way does it work? I don't know.
I felt weird about it at one point, but now I'm fully on the Nobe Omniscope train as long as I can view that in the combined mat at the same
Paid
time.
for by Nobe.
This is the point in the reality show where we have the cutaways to the individual cameras. Where I've been trying to tell Isaac about the Nobe, but they just won't believe me. And
Plays whatever that kitchen nightmares sound effect is.
Oh my gosh, hilarious!
Yeah, it's like sitting down, like, okay, here's the deal. It's actually Nobe Omniscope. The guys are wrong about this. Yeah. Anyway, so stay tuned. We'll continue working through that. It's a fun challenge to have. Okay.
hey, do I get to be Uncle Si in the?
Oh, nice.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
Hey.
Never seen Doug Dynasty.
Since we're talking about it, we do have to say rest in peace. I believe Phil passed away just a few days ago. So I was like not going to let that go if we did bring that up.
Man. Well, in that awkward transition, let me move to AI stuff. I promised that I would kind of show that. On my screen, I'll kind of show you. So this is Midjourney is the tool I was using. I just want to walk you through very quickly kind of my thought process, my crappy results, and how I finally got there. So here you can see what I started doing is I just took the image into Midjourney. I did this quality erasing job. Now, the reason I did that is this is where that aquarium was that I wanted to kind of remove, but I wanted to keep part of that there so that you could see the cars as they drove by here. And then of course over here on this side, because that way we can overlay it. And those were my first awesome attempts at pulling it off. This guy, I'm like, don't jump, don't do it. And so those did not win. And I realized, I'm like, how did it pick up on the aquarium so good? And if you go back and look at, like, there's this much aquarium showing through or whatever, and that was just enough for it, and over here and whatever, that was enough for it to be like, oh, I think it's a building that looks like this. I'm like, AI, dang it. So did another round, erased a little better. I don't know. I'm not sure better is how I would describe it. That started getting something looking kind of better, I guess, but still not looking very real. And so, okay, back again. Oh, back one more time. Maybe I can go back. Okay, I'll just do view all. I'm afraid it's going to take me. Okay, all right. So fast forward just a little bit, and what I started doing. Sorry, that's too much. Sorry. Hi, my name's Andre, and I'm here to present this to you. I went in and I actually just photoshopped out. Nope. No, maybe this is, yeah, this is me doing a Photoshop out. And then I think I just I missed a little spot. So now I've got a much better erasure of it. Again, I was trying to go fast. You can kind of see me playing around. I think there's a video on ProPres that's kind of showing, or maybe it's a picture, but here I am kind of getting the finished result of just those buildings. Okay, so if we fast forward just a little bit more, if I come up here, now you can see, okay, some of these are starting to be good. I'm kind of digging this this building. It's reflecting the trees. That part's good. And then you'll see what I'm trying to do here is erase out an additional part, because I need the building to be out here, because there's a real building in the real shot that goes all the way here. So the cars have to basically be coming out on this pillar side. And so this is me just kind of working through how do I get that inside there. And then I'm prompting things like larger building, pretty compelling prompts. We were doing this really quickly to see. So somewhere through here, I picked one. Look at this. And then I was like, so then after I kind of got the building, one of those, I'm like, okay, probably that one. It's like, oh, good. Okay, now I've got a building there. The cars can pop out of that. But I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Because again, somehow AI picked up in the most minuscule way some of that pattern of the aquarium. And so then this is me cutting it out. And I love how it's like, or maybe a plant. So, or this dumb looking chair. So it definitely had some, but I think I landed on this one. So then what I'm essentially doing, if we go back to that picture on ProPresenter, so there you can see in the lower left there, then I just cut out the actual parts that were the change I wanted to make. And so now if we can show the actual composited wide shot, that's the before. But you can see the car. There we go. And so now we can kind of see the end result. So you can see kind of behind on that right-hand side, we can still see the cars driving by into her brain on that side. So that was the way of kind of doing that. And so it's a mixture of working through these different pieces. I did the same on the side shot. So specifically on the one of Olivia, I worked through trying to figure out like, okay, what can I do to take the actual shot? And I don't think we show you the actual side shot, but I took that and then went through and just started kind of prompting. And you can see like some of them are really dumb looking. It's like, oh, what in the world is going on here? And again, I was going really fast, and I've learned sometimes to just say really short prompts. So like this one says high-end tall ceilings lobby depth of field. So again, just trying to get something that I thought would look cool. And sometimes it would do better than others in bringing in. I didn't like its intuition, if that's the word you could use, of bringing in something so close like that. That didn't feel right to me. And so then I started, just kind of keeping with high end, because I'm like, well, that's kind of doing what I want. Let me see. And so somewhere through there, and again, just like I'm wanting you to see, like it was a bunch of generations. But then I started getting something. I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of interesting. Empty, large, high rise. And so then I think I just started erasing different pieces of that out. And I'm like, okay, well, the greenery seems kind of cool. Let me just erase different parts of the greenery. And then I'm like, well, maybe that's the wrong way. And then I kind of went back to the greenery, and I'm like, okay, I think that's, if you look at the shot, it's one of those like that. That we ended up with. And so there's still a component of that on the side that's still live. There wasn't a lot of action happening there. Ironically, there's an escalator behind her, but I think if you show that shot one more time,
you can see it in this shot.
Kind of see it, but it's not it's not at all obvious what it is. It is actually moving. So I left a way to kind of cut that out, but then I changed kind of the ceiling and some of the other parts of the original shot as well. So that's how I did that. Midjourney is pretty awesome for that. I will tell you, I'm getting some cool results with ChatGPT as well, but ChatGPT will not output a 16:9 image. So if you're using ChatGPT, just realize no matter how much you try and how much you prompt, as of this date of the recording, it can't actually output a true 16:9 aspect ratio. So that means then you're bringing it into Photoshop or something like that, and then generative filling the sides to blend it back out. And sometimes it can get off just a little bit. So I was really just going to overlay this on top of, so we just, I think, put it in OBS.
Yep.
And then I just put an overlay because this was just a quick mock-up
I can
just
actually
for you
show-
guys.
Here's
You know,
the,
just to
here's
show-
the here's the original plate,
Yeah.
and then it is the mock that just overlaid on top
Great.
of it.
And you can see, like, again, I would put more effort on that left side if you kind of toggle back and forth between them. I need my video pencil hooked back up. But you can see on that left kind of part that juts out, there's a pretty hard vertical line there that I would put more effort into.
We also were having issues with the resolution of the file you got out of Midjourney, and we were
Right.
going pretty fast. So
Yeah,
it wasn't
this was
scaled.
all of this happened in the span of a few minutes, right? It was just kind of like, I don't know if I can even show this. We decided later it's fine to show it, but that was kind of, and I was like, oh, I kind of need to show this workflow. But I mean, it's amazing. So when you start thinking about your plates, think about ways you can take them where you can capture motion in part of the plate, and then another part of the plate that would either, it may have motion in it too, but some part that you could easily remove to replace with a static. And I think having that wide shot, seeing that industrial building, whatever, but still seeing the cars drive by. And then as we cut to the other shots, those cars, like they're very nondescript, right? The shot of just the rest of the bridge with Tiffany in the main part of the shot. It's like, that doesn't need to change because now we're looking over here. So I don't even have to do anything to that. But the main establishing wide shot now has a very different, it's like, well, I don't know. I don't think anyone in the world would think, oh, well, that was shot at this location that we actually shot it in. Once they see the bridge and stuff like that, they may be able to start putting that together, but it'd have to be a pretty nuanced understanding. So experiment with that. If you have plates, that's a great thing to do. And what we're going to be doing soon is selling some of our plates. And as we do that, what I'm imagining we'll do is kind of have like a package. So it would be like, whatever this one would be as an example. And then it would have like 12 different kind of looks that would be more dialed in. So it'd be the original plate and then kind of 12 variants or whatever. I'm making up the number 12, but some number of high-end variants so that you could really get, because once you get that lighting and everything established, then boom, you could just switch between all of these really easily. So
one quick thing about the plate real fast that I forgot to mention when we talked about the plate capture. It was a stormy day outside, nice and overcast, which was great. But when, you don't notice it when you're sitting there, but the lighting changed a lot. And so we ended up needing to kind of work with that in post. So we did like about a half-hour plate, ended up with about 7 usable minutes out of that half an hour. So these things really get cut down pretty quick. That's why you got to film them for so long. The other thing that we ended up doing, though, is I used a new tool that I hadn't messed with before, and I'm still learning, which is Color Stabilizer in the color page on Resolve. That really helped keep the white balance and the exposure the same. This is one where, because the clouds were rolling in and then out and getting thinner, our white balance was changing during the plate. I don't think that's something we've really ever had happen before, is a changing white balance. And so it was tough. I don't feel like I nailed using that tool. The plate turned out fine, but I still feel like for me, I'm like, man, I want to improve on that process, learn how I can do it better. It's funny how I'm kind of accidentally in editing all these plates, I'm having to learn how to do color, which is not something I ever expected to have to do. And so it's been interesting. But yeah, that Color Stabilizer tool, if you are going out and shooting plates with B-RAW, even with not B-RAW, I mean, it technically works with anything, it's very useful. It definitely helped make this cohesive in a way. It was nice.
And on a mental health note, Murphy's Law comes into play when you're filming plates like no other. What was it like? Just a few minutes in, we're like, perfect, no one's here, and then like this dude on a crane just comes up. He starts working on the roof. We're like,
nowhere.
oh my! Just like the moving truck when we tried to film the plate at Amada. And I talked to one of our other clients who I kind of had a talk with and checked in with. They shot a plate. They're down in Florida, and a FedEx truck move in like 3 or 4 times. And I'm like, you know what? I just think it's just going to happen, and you just got to figure out how to roll with it. And then the day that it doesn't happen, you'll be the happiest man alive.
And the thing is, like in the shots here specifically, it's the one that the crane showed up in. It showed in that window. And so it's like, you know what? Just cut out the window, and nothing needs to move there because the escalator's still going, all the things still work, so it worked out fine. But in the moment, you're like, no, that's the one thing I was
Yeah. So we covered a ton of information on this one, and a lot of things that we're going to be diving even deeper on with the virtual production mastermind. So if you're interested in that, please visit vpmastermind.com, schedule a consultation call with us. We've had a lot of you reach out, and we're really looking forward to moving forward with everybody with VP Mastermind. Isaac, you said you had something you wanted to mention when it came to some Instagram stuff?
Yeah, so Morgan and I are doing a lot of rack rewiring. We're getting the Video Hub 120 by 120 12G from Blackmagic Design, so we're going to kind of take our whole racks and rethink all of them. So we've got a plan, and we're going to be redoing the whole racks. We're going to be trying to kind of post a lot about that and share with you that process, because I think it'd be really fun for you all to get involved and kind of see what does it take for us to kind of redo the racks, and hopefully this time actually have some cable management that we stick to.
Hey, and don't forget to subscribe and share our videos with friends who you think would benefit from watching these. Yeah, we appreciate it, and we'll see you guys on the next one.